Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about Israel's diplomatic positioning, but as ever, it's difficult to plan what will be the headline of the day on any given day in the State of Israel, and there are certainly headlines emanating from the country at this time that we have an individual of rare expertise who is able to speak to those issues about. His name is Danny Ayalon, and Danny Ayalon served as Israel's ambassador to the United States from July 2002 to November 2006, during which time relations between the two countries reached an all-time high. Strategic, political, and economic ties were deepened and expanded across the board during his tenure. Ambassador Ayalon played a leading role in securing the agreement for $10 billion in US grants and loan guarantees to Israel. The roadmap for peace, the historic exchange of letters between President Bush and Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, and the bilateral trade that reached $20 billion and another $10 billion in investment. That's quite a series of achievements there, Ambassador. From 1997 to 2002, prior to his appointment to the United States, Danny Ayalon served as foreign policy advisor to Prime Ministers Benjamin Netanyahu and Ehud Barak, and as chief foreign policy advisor to Prime Minister Ariel Sharon. As a member of Israel's Foreign Service from 1989 to 1997, he represented Israel as a consul in Panama and as a member of Israel's permanent mission to the United Nations. Before government service, Danny Ayalon worked in the private sector as a senior financial executive. He is a graduate of Tel Aviv University with a BA in economics and labor studies, and he holds an MBA from Bowling Green State University in Ohio in the United States. He served as a captain in the IDF Armored Corps. He's married to Anne, and together they have two daughters. And Danny, it's wonderful to have you here. Thank you so very much for joining us. Really a pleasure. First of all, how are you doing?
Very fine. Just came back from the United States for a quick, short business trip, but it's always great to be here with you and with the MirYam Institute. And, you know, I want to really commend you for everything that you do. And I always look forward to dialoguing with you because I appreciate your inquisitive mind and your breadth of knowledge on world affairs and especially on Jewish affairs and the state of Israel, and the fact that you all care and do so much for the future of Israel and the Jewish people, because we know that we stand in a diplomatic war that has been waged upon us, unfortunately, and what the MirYam Institute is, you are one of the more effective tools that we have to defend us.
Thank you very much, Danny. I really, really appreciate those kind words, and I know that you speak to me and our entire team here at the Institute, and it's greatly appreciated. I will just start with one quick question for you. The listeners may or may not be aware, but we just concluded a visit to Israel for about 30 active serving officers of the United States Army that we brought over for an Israel strategy and policy tour of the country. You were their first speaker. How did you enjoy speaking to that audience? I know that they thoroughly enjoyed listening to you, but how did you enjoy speaking to them?
Oh, very much. First of all, it's such a treat, inspiring to meet a young cadre of people like that, which are willing to serve. You know, today in our day and age, it's not very, I would say, trivial to find youngsters who are willing to sacrifice for their country. And to sacrifice for their country, meaning also, you know, it's not just any country. The United States of America is our best friend and ally, the best democratic power in the world, and what assures freedom and liberty. And this is what these guys are serving for. And the fact that they came over to Israel and they find here and they feel here at home, as they told me, because there's such a natural alliance between Israel and the United States. You know, here also we are a country which has to defend our values, our ways of life, the Judeo tradition, Christian heritage that we have. So I found them, you know, as people who are very close to us. And the fact that they are just starting out and that they will at some point may command huge contingents of American military, or maybe even be the Joint Chiefs. The fact that they have been here and learned from the start who we are, what we are about, and the importance of Israel to, I would say, to world security and stability and freedom as a beacon of really a democratic country here in the very, very tough area in the Middle East. I think it has done a lot. And again, thank you for the MirYam Institute to do that. They have learned a lot, and they feel much closer now to Israel. They understand better the geopolitics of the region. So it was a win-win. It was a win for Israel, a win for America, and of course, for every cadet of West Point who was here.
Thanks very much, Danny. I really appreciate your words. And I'd like to dig right in, and I'd like to really get going with Ukraine for a moment. Danny, Yair Lapid spoke out recently in very clear terms about Russia's actions in Ukraine during his recent visit to Greece, I believe. He said, and I'm quoting, "These images and testimony from Ukraine are horrific. Russian forces committed war crimes against a defenseless civilian population. I strongly condemn these war crimes." He was said to have been saying that in reference to the atrocities committed in the Kiev suburb of Bucha. How do you think Israel's diplomatic position is holding up in the court of public opinion on the issue of Ukraine? We've come in for quite a bit of criticism from some circles. Some people have applauded it.
Sure.
Others have critiqued it severely, saying we've not been, I'm one of the individuals, for what my view is worth here, who thinks that we have not been sufficiently strident and swift with our condemnation. I told you that when we were in Israel together a couple of weeks ago. But put my views aside, what's your view? How do you think we're doing?
Well, I would say it is I would say it's a situation that is unfolding, and also the Israeli position is unfolding together. I mean, alongside the developments on the ground and the reality. In the start, when the war started, yes, it is true that Israel was quite mum or mute, not quick in criticizing Russia for our strategic interests. You know, Russia is our de facto is our neighbor from the north, basically, you know, positioned in Syria, and we need the coordination, strategic coordination with Russia, especially with Russian Air Force, to do what we need to do to defend ourselves against the nefarious Iranians' attempts to basically to destroy the state of Israel. So for us, it's something which is very existential. However, at the same time, we make no mince out of it that we are a democratic country. We are very proud to belong to the Western camp. And in that respect, we are following the leadership of the United States. However, I also felt in the beginning, we didn't need to stick our heads out. I mean, we let our, let's say, position known, but not in a very, very vociferous, I would say, way. But we did vote with the United States and all the Western countries to condemn Russia right from the start. It is true that we didn't sponsor the resolution, but these are all diplomatic nuances. But of course, as a Western democracy, as a Jewish state, we cannot ignore, of course, attacks on armed people. And certainly, as we saw the atrocities now in the Ukraine, of course, we cannot remain silent. And you see that the position and the pressure on in terms of our condemnation is moving up. Also, from the start, we said we would help the side that has been attacked. We are the one. We sent humanitarian aid and the field hospital, which is a first-rate one. We're working over there. And now, as we see, after everything was exposed over there, with really the war crimes, then of course it has I would say, cut out any hesitations Israel had in terms of positioning itself. And in this case, of course, we are, as our foreign minister said in Greece. So now there is no doubt what we think and what is our position about it. But also we have to remember, we are also, we have to be pragmatic in the sense when you run a country. And Israel, as such, cannot make a difference. I mean, it wasn't up to us. I mean, there was no, from the start. I mean, we couldn't send forces over there, even if we wanted to. We don't have the forces to send. There were much bigger countries than us, NATO countries, the United States, that didn't send force to defend the poor people of the Ukrainians. Just as in World War II, the Allies did not bomb the concentration camps and the crematoriums. So there is some equivalency here, but we are not in a position to make a difference. If we were, I know where we were, but since we are not making such a huge impact, we can only do what we can. So the condemnations, as they are very important, and now of course we are picking them up and taking it all the way to where they should be on the ground from first day one, humanitarian aid. And we had to do all that bearing in mind not to compromise our security positions and interest in the North.
I really appreciate your perspective, Danny. I feel, just, and then we'll shift to Iran, but my feeling was, and we don't have to talk about it too much here now, but my feeling was very much that, as a veteran, as someone who served in the Second Lebanon War, as someone who served in Pillar of Defense and Protective Edge, and has seen the international community too often too slow to condemn aggression from Hezbollah and Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad against the state of Israel, that each time I have seen successive Israeli ambassadors sit in the United Nations and call upon the world community, the global community, to take a clear moral stand, to stand on the side of right and righteousness and virtue and condemn the aggression against the state of Israel. And I think those ambassadors were absolutely right to do so. And I think because of that, we ought to have been much more strident from the beginning with our diplomatic, I want to emphasize, diplomatic condemnation of what was going on. And secondly, precisely because we're not in a position to engage militarily, nor do we want to, nor is there any Israeli government with a mandate to do so from the people, I think that ratchets up the pressure to do what we can in the diplomatic arena. And I don't think we got there swiftly enough, or in my view, I think we were so slow that I think we'll probably be cruelly judged with the passage of time for that. But that's my own perspective, and you've ably put forward your perspective, obviously, and we both do so from a position of deep care for Israel and its place among the nations. Let me turn you now to the issue of Iran. Sorry, because I really feel like I'm coming at you with so many different dimensions here, but yesterday there were...
It's called Tour d'Horizon.
There you go. Thank you.
In the diplomatic circles. It's a French term, yeah. We're covering the horizon, yeah.
I think so, somewhat. And speaking of that horizon, there's a very significant deal on the horizon. And yesterday, a handful of Democrats from the House of Representatives in the United States voiced serious misgivings about the Biden administration's desire to return to the JCPOA or the Iran deal. And those misgivings, Danny, they focused primarily upon the mooted possibility that in order to induce re-entry by the US and Iran into that agreement, the US would delist the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps from the State Department's list of foreign terror organizations, known as the FTO. Those same lawmakers also spoke out against any re-entry that failed to address Iran's broader malign activities, including their exporting of terror proxies such as Hezbollah and the funding of those proxies and their ongoing ballistic missiles program. So, Danny, I've got two questions about this issue. The first is this: how would you assess Prime Minister Lapid's playbook here as they attempt to stymie a return to the JCPOA by the Biden administration. In my view, it's a very different approach to the one Benjamin Netanyahu took, but it seems that both routes are leading to the same outcome, which is a continued desire of the US administration to enter the deal. That's question one. I'd like you to assess. Well, actually, let's pause there. Assess that for us.
Okay.
How do you rate their approach?
Sure. So first, let me say that what benefit Lapid is learning from experience. And Bibi Netanyahu tenaciously was working against the Obama administrations not to sign such a weak and dangerous agreement. He did everything in his diplomatic arsenal to do it, including a special trip that he made to Washington, D.C., to Congress, where he spoke in front of to the joint session of Congress. But unfortunately, and I say it with great concern and sadness, unfortunately, that did not work. It did not stop the agreement at all. Not only that, it denied Israel access in the very last, very crucial stages of the negotiations with Iran, where we were blindsided, we were not in the loop, and we could not really make any impact that we could have done, in a tactical way on the agreement itself. And I think what was the worst thing here is that we did not demand a compensation from the Obama administration to, I would say, to offset some of the dangers of this agreement by bolstering Israel arsenal in many things that in defense corporations, now of course we cannot, of course, spell them out, but there are many, many things that still can be done to do that. So assessing the situation, and based on this experience, they thought, okay, we'll take another approach. And this is what they've been doing. That is, we will not challenge diplomatically and publicly the administration and Biden and his team. We will do it face to face. Now, as we are about, to see maybe a signature of a agreement which is even weaker than the first one, this may have not worked either. We don't know yet. It's not over yet. But we see that this may have not worked either, except that here we are in a position to demand, and I say to demand because it's also an American interest that Israel will have the capabilities to face to the Iran's danger, especially if, God forbid, there is another weak agreement, because here we are not alone. Israel's capabilities defend the entire region. All the allies of the United States, the traditional allies of the United States, mainly the Sunni, moderate Sunni Arab countries, today rely on Israel's defense more than anything else. So I believe that we are in a better position now, again, if an agreement is signed as it is now, which is really bad. But at least we will be able, hopefully, to I would say to deploy and to prepare in a better way against the Iranian threat than we would have had we been at cross with the United States public. Mm-hmm. So this is where I am now. The bottom line is that, and we know it, we see it also from the Ukraine, that we cannot put our defense and future in the hands of anyone else, even our best friends and allies. It's only going to be in our hands. And we always have to be in the position that where we can defend ourselves by ourselves. We will continue to do that. And I would say plan B is, if there is an agreement like that, that we will be in the position to, and I can say it quite openly because I do not represent the government, but it's, if we need to take out the Iranian threat, we will take it out and we will use every means to do that. And this is where we need to be now, to build the capabilities, to improve these capabilities, and it will be easier for us to do that when the U.S. is backing us and not in any kind of stranded diplomatic course.
So the second part to that question is coming at the issue from a very different angle. The objection of these democratic lawmakers is coming from a very, very small minority of Democrats. I believe, Danny, that 5 elected officials from the House of Representatives held the press conference that I alluded to earlier, where they spoke about their misgivings about the JCPOA and a re-entry of it. And I think a further 13 lent their support, though they were not present at the press conference. Danny, do you think that the traditional notion of bipartisan support for the state of Israel from within the United States, lofty and virtuous in theory as it may be, is actually a notion that belongs firmly to the past? Is it a notion, this bipartisan support, is it a notion that belongs firmly to the past and is no longer within Israel's gift or America's gift to bestow in either direction?
Well, I hope not. I hope not. The bipartisan support of Israel in the United States is very, very important. I remember times where, again, like today, Republicans and Democrats could not agree on anything except the support of Israel. But this is waning and fading away. Mostly, it's part of I would say, an ideological struggle among Democrats themselves. It's not something that we can do much. However, there is also all those, I would say, negative forces, BDS, that is kind of giving the support and the backing for these progressive Democrats to and encouraging them to be very much, against Israel. This is something that I believe it's for the American people to decide. And for that, the American people have to be better educated. And this is where we are in this campaign of education, of just talking about the facts and the ramifications. And this is why the MirYam Institute and such webinars as it is today, and many other efforts, whether it's in campuses, whether it's in the media, whether it's among business communities and anywhere else that you can expose what Israel is very, very important, because we have failed on that. And what the Palestinians have been doing in the last, I would say, 30, 40 years is that they were actually echoing their efforts in Europe 50 and 60 years ago by, financing, inspiring any bad sentiments against Israel. What they did and succeeded, unfortunately, in Europe, they have imported to the United States. It's not too late. It's not too late to stop it, but we need to have here a whole network. We cannot be divided among ourselves, especially the Jewish community in the United States. And I cannot blame, let's say, the Democrats for hesitating now about their support to Israel. I can blame Jewish communities, because if they hesitate, how can I go to the Democrats? They are the ones fueling maybe the Democrats' doubts vis-a-vis Israel. But of course, the game is not over. And I believe that at the end of the day, and we see that things are coming to a head internationally. And when there is international crisis like we have today in Russia, I believe not just analysts and strategists in Washington see, but also the common people, whether it's in Ohio or Idaho or anywhere else, see and they will see the value of a strong Israel to the United States. So hopefully we will see a change of heart among the Democrats. I believe that we need to support the mainstream Democrats and certainly not give up the support of the Democrats and the bipartisan, I would say, holy grail of the relationship between Israel and the United States. Quite the contrary, we should actually work harder today to do that. We know that it's not going to be easy, but we must just not keep silent.
Danny, do you think, given these indications of trouble continuing and becoming ever more prominent and encroaching that you mentioned in terms of public opinion with regard to Israel, do you think it might be time for Israel to begin to diversify away from American dependency when it comes to diplomatic support and even military aid? Do you think there might be virtue in some diversification, showing greater independence, and therefore having a more sincere and more entrenched relationship with the United States as a consequence?
Well, I do not see any substitutes to the friendship with the United States because it's based on values, very deep values. If you look around, Israel's foreign policy since the first days of the modern state of Israel, Ben Gurion, was always to ally ourselves with a major power. When you're a small country, like an island in a sea of hostility, you must have great, alliances. And we've had it. We've had it with France. Incidentally, we've had it with the Soviet Union in the first days of the country back in 1948. It was the Soviet Union that the only one that allowed shipments of arms to Israel at the time. Well, they hoped that Israel would fall into their camp. Of course, we didn't. So this is they mighty fast change their attitude towards Israel. We had France, we have the United States, but we need a basis of fundamental values. We didn't have that with the Soviet Union, of course. We do have it with the United States. We will not have it with any other, let's say, superpower in the world today. So I don't think I think it's a no-brainer that we have to continue with the United States. However, in such a way that will not compromise our relations, and mostly economic ones, with other countries like China, for instance. At the same time, and this is very important, we must continue and build our own independent capabilities that we will never need anyone from the outside to defend ourselves. And I think Israel has been very proud, and still is, that, and we tell them, I remember when I was in Washington, we told them, and our American friends always appreciated that we said that Israel will never ask American boys and girls to be put in harm's way for us. We will defend ourselves. We know how to do that. All we need, of course, is the means to do it. But unlike any other ally of the United States, we are unique in the sense that we do not need American troops. Unlike Korea, unlike Okinawa, Japan, unlike NATO. Look at all the troops. And now the US is thinking of actually increasing American troops on Europe. You don't need to do it for us, for Israel. We can take care of ourselves and of other American allies here. But we still are very much dependent on American technology, American weapons, and this is what we cannot risk. There is another issue which is not very much talked about, but this is an open conversation, and I guess nobody listens here anyway. But you know that, Benjamin, what I see is equivalent to the importance of all the defense relations with the United States and the cooperation is also the diplomatic relations, and meaning that in a single, I would say in a single hand issue is the veto power of the United States. Without the veto power of the United States, and the United States have been defending Israel in the UN Security Council now for generations. Without that, we would have been very much compromised to the maybe to the extent of being expelled from the UN. So this is very important also to nurture this diplomatic cooperation with the United States. Of course, it's not just one-sided. It's also American interest to do that. But the best thing that we can do in order to bolster the alliance with the United States is by bringing into the table not just our military capabilities, which are superb, and they are really defending American interests, and many American lives have been saved because of our intelligence cooperation and technological and many other tactical ways and joint exercises. But also what we can bring is a bolstered diplomatic position of Israel, and we have been doing that. Today, Israel is not alone. Israel is not isolated. We have two strong regional alliances. The one which I call the Eastern one with the Gulf countries, and the Western one is with the Cyprus and Greece. So by doing that, it also helps the United States to continue and defend Israel in international forums.
So let me ask you a bit more about Israel's relationship with diaspora Jewry. Danny, for some years now, in response to what I would term it a demand, frankly, made by religiously liberal wings of the American Jewish community, the Israeli government has sought to adjust or to modify the character of the prayer sections adjacent to the Western Wall, to the Kotel, in order to facilitate egalitarian prayer there, that being men and women praying together at the wall. A member of Knesset, Idit Silman, announced very recently that the accommodation that was being sought simply would not be happening. She stated, quote, "There's a status quo with the Western Wall that I don't think is going to change. All of the attention around this is just demagoguery. This is a house of prayer. There's a minority, a reform minority," she's saying that in reference to the American Jewish reform movement, "that is making a lot of noise as though it's the majority. We need to say the truth. That is not the case." Danny, what are your thoughts on her sounding what could be the death knell for this accommodation for egalitarian prayer at the Western Wall, and what that might mean for Israel's relationship with diaspora Jewry?
Well, I'm very concerned because I do think that the pluralism in Judaism has been what made us so strong for millennia. I think it is important that we will be united, but we don't have to have. But this unity doesn't have to be uniformity, and there are many ways, to practice your Judaism. Our great rabbis, say that there are 70 facets, 70 faces to the Torah. If we look at all the great rabbis, from First Temple and Second Temple and on, we have not seen such a stringent or such division or such zealousy, which I think we should do away with. It is true that the reform movement is in minority here in Israel, but not worldwide, and certainly not when it comes to the United States. And we cannot just shun such a huge segment of our people, of our brothers and sisters. So even if we are in disagreement, we should never be in a position that we do not talk to each other. We always have to remember that not only we have a common ancestry and a common history, we also have a common future and a common destiny. And today, Israel and the Jewish people owns its destiny. It owns its destiny because we are back at home independent and we can control our future. and the state of Israel belongs to all Jews in the world. And this is something also has to be very, very evident and understood. And this is why we have this law of return. Israel is unique because the Jewish people, not only because of who we are, because of our DNA, but also because of all the travails and tribulations that we have had in the last 2,000 years. We must understand that even if we do not agree, and part of the strength of the Jewish people is always, crystallizing ideas and dissenting, but always within the pale. You cannot go beyond the pale. And I do not agree by taking finite decisions of, okay, the Kotel belongs to only this or that. No, we have to keep talking. We have to find solutions, and we can find solutions. It's just a matter of where you are coming from. And if there will be open hearts and open minds, and I believe at some point we will be, if we continue to work at that, we will always find accommodations. We have to do that. They cannot be a monopoly of one group of another. In Israel, there is no separation of religion and state, right? Church and state, or synagogue and state. Maybe we should think about that so we can keep the religion pure. Today, religion is too much involved with politics, and I don't think it does any good to politics, neither to religion.
So, Danny, I've got two last questions for you. The first is I want to turn to our newfound allies, partners in the region. Of course, I'm referring to the signatories to the Abraham Accords. Danny, Fida Q1, an Israeli woman, was sentenced to death on Tuesday in Dubai after she was convicted of possessing 0.5 kilogram of cocaine. Now, the Israeli Foreign Ministry has said that the case is well known to them and that they're handling it through the consular service and their representatives in the Emirates. But talk to us, please, if you would. You just spoke about the values-based alliance between Israel and the United States. In contrast with that, I would suggest, talk to us about the realpolitik of our relationship with the UAE, a country that would sentence to death an individual for possessing cocaine. It's far from a values-based alliance that Israel has with the UAE, isn't it?
Absolutely. But this is what foreign policy is all about. The values, of course, is a big chunk, but the other side of the coin is the interests. And you always have to navigate between the interests and the values. And of course, the alliance that we have, let's say what I call the Western Alliance, when, with countries like Greece and Cyprus, for us, it's also based on Judeo-Christian values and heritage. The Eastern one, it's mostly based on interests. They were very, I would say, properly called Abrahamic Accord, because there's also a lot in common between these two cousins of peoples, the Muslims and Jews. But we know that there is a long way to go in the region until it becomes democratic, pluralistic, and sharing our values. We cannot say that at this point. However, that in foreign policy, you must do the separation between this and the interests. So, of course, when it comes to the alliance, by the way, we were approached by, and this is the nice thing, that change. Israel has become such a meaningful and central power in the region in terms of strategic capabilities, military, economic, technological, that the countries of the region come to us. The Emirates realized that they cannot compromise their own interests because of the Palestinians and their intransigence to move forward and to make peace with Israel. So this is a new era in the Middle East where the dog, is waging the tail and not the other way around, which was the case where the Palestinians actually had a veto power over the entire Arab world, against relations with Israel. Today, it's different. Firstly, it's because of Iran, which is an existential threat to the Emirates and all the countries in the Gulf. Secondly, it's because of the other existential threat, which is the radical Sunni Muslims, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and the such, which also their mission is to topple all the governments of the Arab countries and make one caliphate, to make one radical Islamic state. So they need us also in counterterrorism. And also in the future, they need Israel technology in order to survive the era when oil will no longer be needed and where they will need food security, water security, and this is where we are. Of course, when it comes to values, we differ, and we have to make our opinions known. They are made known. In the case of the Israeli woman, I think that Israel will throw its weight, and they will have to waive any kind of capital punishment, and maybe even we can settle it in diplomatic ways, but behind closed doors.
So my last question, Danny, the Israel-Palestinian conflict. A lot of people would say and did say that there's a new way of doing business in the Middle East. It's from the outside in, rather than the traditional, ill-founded, misguided so-called wisdom was that until the Israel-Palestinian conflict was resolved, Israel could not have full normalized relations with its neighbors beyond its borders and beyond certainly those countries with whom Israel shares a border, such as Egypt, Jordan, and so forth. That was proven to be nonsense. All right, I don't think that that's hitting it too directly in terms of my description. That was proven to be total nonsense. On the other hand, there was a perception, an equally misguided perception among some, that normalization with the signatories to the Abraham Accords would make the Israel-Palestinian issue go away in the consciousness of the international arena, the United Nations, even our close ally, the United States. That has not happened. It's not going to happen, in my opinion, and I never thought that it would happen. So I actually believe, Danny, that there's a problem afoot, which is that the pendulum of support for Israel is one that swings variously between different American administrations. And I believe that ultimately we're going to see a huge pendulum swing to the far, far left, whereby there will be a demand that the state of Israel enters into the work required to bring about a one-state solution. I think that that's on the horizon. It's being spoken about. It's very much there on campuses. The students today will be the policymakers of tomorrow, and the pathway from graduate school to elected office is ever more truncated. What do you see Israel being able to do to bring about an end to the conflict, if not peace? I think that peace is a very lofty goal that actually probably shouldn't be sought in the real world. We can pray for it and daven for it, but I don't think it's really within our gift to bring about. But what do you think Israel must do or if you think she must, in order to bring about some improvement, some advancement on the Israel-Palestinian front? And why do we have to, if that is your opinion?
Well, first, let me tell you that this one-state solution is really a hoax. It's just an empty threat.
Of course.
You see that one-state solutions, when you put some people that do not belong to the same, let's say, group, you cannot do that. You see, on the contrary, you see that the breakdown of multinational states to the more uniform elements. We saw it in Yugoslavia, the Soviet Union. We see, actually now you see it in the Ukraine. The Ukraine is separate from Russia. You cannot just put Ukraine under Russia. And this is the same case here. We are a Jewish state. We will remain a Jewish state, and nobody can force upon us to take non-Jews and make them Israeli citizens with rights to vote. This is a threat which we must explain very, very clearly from the start. I do not see that there is anyone with his right mind can think of any solution now with the Palestinians, political solutions, when on the one hand they have a division, a major division between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, where Hamas is now more popular than the Palestinian Authority, not only in Gaza, but also in Judea and Samaria, in the territory which is called Territory A under the Oslo Accords, the one that is fully controlled by the Palestinian Authority. And by the way, all those who say, 40% of Judea and Samaria is controlled by the Palestinian Authority, 100% of Gaza. So I don't think that anyone can claim that Israel has not been doing things in real terms to compromise. Unfortunately, it's the Palestinians who are not budging. And as long as they have this division, and Hamas, is sworn on our destruction, I don't think that the Hamas is different in ideology than the Palestinian Authority. It's just different on tactic, where they say outright, Hamas, that Israel has to be destroyed. Palestinians do not say it, but they act towards that by teaching their children to continue to hate Israel and by continue to delegitimize Israel in the UN and everywhere else where they can. Also, I do not see anyone, even within the Palestinian Authority, who is willing to recognize Israel as a Jewish state. This is what actually broke down all negotiations under Obama, under Clinton, anyone else. So first of all, we have to be much better and precise. We don't need to be apologetic, we don't have to explain why we are here and why we have to defend ourselves. But we have to make clear that the people of the world understand that the conflict is because of one reason: the Palestinians' continued refusal to recognize Israel's inherent right to be here in our homeland. We were willing to share this land with them so many times in the past. They did not, because for them it was all or nothing. So this has to be first and foremost a diplomatic campaign, and we have to be much better at that. On the ground, we have the capabilities to defend ourselves. At the same time, there's not much. We have to understand what we can and what we cannot do. We can maybe with some semi-pragmatic leadership on the Palestinian side, we can help them to bring up their standard of living, to make their life much more comfortable and successful. But we have to understand it's not up to us, it's them. They have to do it. We cannot elect their leaders. And now when Abu Mazen is 87 years old and he is on his way out of power, some other elements are gearing up. I'm afraid that there could be an all-out war, and war in our region, except in Israel, it's a democracy. When we are fighting each other, it's political. It's with words. We shoot words at each other, not bullets. But our neighbors here, I'm afraid we are going to see some violent wave among the Palestinians. And why do I say all that? Who will replace Abu Mazen? Is because everyone, and this is where the administration in Washington, should understand. They have seasoned diplomats. They have strategic analysts. They have to understand. The first thing to understand is what you can and what you cannot do before you decide on a policy, before you decide on a strategy. So anyone who thinks that they can bring the Palestinian issue now front stage and center, it's going to be a huge destabilizing and damaging element to the entire architecture of the Middle East, and it will compromise not just Israeli interests, also American interests.
Ambassador Danny Ayalon, thank you so very much for being with us today. It was a wonderful conversation, and we certainly did take a tour of the horizon, as you said earlier in the conversation. And as ever, I continue to learn from you. I want to thank Rosita Panini, co-founder of the MirYam Institute, and also Alan Langer, our colleague in common, and of course our audience on JBS. We appreciate their time and their attention. And most importantly, I want to thank you, Danny. Thank you for enriching my education further. Thank you for going back and forth with me a little bit on all of this and providing your unique, qualified and extremely professional perspective as ever. And I look forward to the next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you. Thank you personally. Thank you to the MirYam Institute. Keep up the good work.
We'll try. All the very best, Danny. Bye-bye.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double high or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, Post Office Box 360, Stamford, Connecticut 06904. Or you can call the JBS Pledge Line at 833-MY-JBS-TV. That's 833-695-2788. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. We thank you for your kind support.